Part 3, how to teach your homeschoolers math, part 3. In the last 2 videos, we talked about not using curriculum and what are the things that your kids need to learn by the time they graduate high school, with the understanding that most of your children are not mathematicians, okay? In this video, I'm gonna assume that you've already watched the other 2 so that you're caught up, and we're talking about 7th and 8th grade, middle school, right before kids potentially break into algebra. And there are a few things that we're going to talk about. There are advanced arithmetic and fractions, introducing algebra or algebraic concepts, geometry, number properties, and advanced vocabulary and word problems. Okay, real life application. So let's dive into this. By now, your kids know their basic math facts, but in the advanced arithmetic and fraction section of learning, they need to master operations with fractions and decimals, adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing numbers with fractions, numbers with decimals, converting fractions to decimals, decimals to fractions, those types of things. They also need to understand how to work with percentages. And if you look in the descriptions below, I have a little cheat video to teach you how to help your kids understand percentages, how to solve percentages. But those are the types of arithmetic problems that they're going to be doing. The basic things, adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing with bigger numbers and with fractional pieces to it or decimal pieces to them, and then working with percentages. What is 12% of a number? What 12 is what percent of a number? 10% of 14 is what? Those types of things. The next section is that you're going to be introducing algebra, and they already know this, but there's vocabulary that's going to need to be learned at this point so that they understand what it is that they're doing. They need to begin to work with and use variables, letters, in simple expressions, problems, or phrases in math. And so a variable in the lower grades, they've already been doing this because you'll just use a blank. 3 plus blank equals 10. And the kids already know that that's 7. So it's at this stage that you say, we stop using lines or blank boxes because in the advanced math, those types of things mean other things. So instead of the line, we're going to use the letters. And those letters are called variables, right? So you'll start introducing those types of vocabulary and get comfortable using the vocabulary of math. Again, that's a challenge that I wish I could go back and do over. Not focusing on the math vocabulary made this stage of math more difficult than it needed to be, because quite honestly, once we hit here, the kids needed more of my help, and I didn't remember what some of the vocabulary words were. So I was confused trying to teach a foreign language when we should have already had that foundation underneath our feet. So embrace the vocabulary. So they're going to understand and use letters or variables in their simple expressions. They're going to learn to write and solve basic equations. An expression doesn't have an equal sign or a greater than or less than sign in it. So it would just be 3x plus 4. An equation will actually have an equal sign or what they call an inequality, greater than, less than, greater than or equal to. So 3x plus 4 equals 24. And so that's an equation. So they're going to be learning to work with equations and beginning to understand the concepts of inequalities, greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, those types of things. If they do progress and they go into algebra, there's a lot of inequalities. And so that's something that they really want solid underneath their feet. Make sense? So advanced arithmetic, working with numbers, fractions, and decimals, understanding percentages, writing and using variables and understanding inequalities. With geometry, they're going to start to plot and graph different things in what's called a coordinate plane. Don't worry, this stuff, you have time to find people that can help you with all of these things if any of this doesn't make sense. But it's like the X and the Y axis, and they have points and they start to graph things, because if they go into algebra, you solve equations and you graph them. So you can look at an equation and you can say that's a line, or that's an an arc or a parabola or whatever the things are. So they're going to study planes and plot points. They're going to understand basic geometric concepts. Again, this leans into the vocabulary. The good news is that there are only a handful of vocabulary words for algebra, for percentages, for geometry. But if you neglect them, they're all going to come at them at the same time. So these geometric vocabulary words are things like congruence, similarity, transformations. Don't worry, you'll be able to learn them right along with your child as you're going, and make yourself actually be excited to learn new things. So geometry. So you've got advanced arithmetic, introduction to algebraic type things, geometry, and then there's two more. There's number properties and advanced vocabulary. You need to deepen the understanding of number properties and how you use them, and learn algebraic terms, the next set of vocabulary, things like variable, expression, equation, coefficient, constant, term, those types of words. And it's easy to Google, what are the advanced vocabulary of arithmetic? And you'll get a list of words, and you can start learning them and using flashcards and those types of things. And then this is the stage where you want to make sure that you've been using word problems all along, but you're going to want to be working with solving more and more complex word problems that involve multiple steps. And you can use math at this stage in real life situations where you're budgeting for their birthday party, or you're planning a shopping trip and you're estimating how much you're going to be spending, planning your next vacation, etc. So pull math into whatever you're doing and include your kids. Yes, it'll take you 47 times longer to do it with your kids at your side. But these are valuable, valuable math life lessons that need to be learned. And then, okay, if you're not using formal curriculum, what kinds of things can you use to lean into these things, this algebra and number properties and real life applications? There are so many online resources and apps for interactive learning. And you're going to have to do some research, and you're going to have to do some experiment. Some kids love one thing, and then you'll be sure that the rest of your kids are going to love it and the rest of your kids hate it. I always had to find new things for each of my boys. They didn't like the same things. They didn't learn in the same way, but there are a bazillion math resources and interactive things online for your kids to practice and learn concepts. You can also involve them in building projects, or have them do building projects that involve math. Things like building models, so taking materials and drawing things and bringing them down to scale, or even in science experiments. Those are great ways, science experiments that require collecting data and analyzing data. So you're going to want to engage them and give them projects that require them to use their mathematics skills. And then the other thing is that it's really fun to encourage logical thinking and reasoning through things like puzzles and brain teasers. a puzzle of the week, a brain teaser of the week, an estimate jar where you fill it with all kinds of stuff and they have to figure out how many things are in it. So these are where they have to use their critical thinking. They have to use their logical skills. And again, there's all kinds of things that you can do online. So down below in the descriptions, you're going to find links to, again, even in 7th, 8th grade, I still like Evan Moor. I still like their resources, especially their daily skill resources. They don't, not all of them go all the way up through 8th grade, but you have to remember it's not about the grade. It's about arithmetic. Typically in 7th, 8th grade, people are trying to push their kids into algebra, and I'm against that. I think that it is a better time spent to kind of grab kids and hold them back a little bit in math so that they get everything solidified. And then when you release them into algebra in high school, they're older, they're more mature because algebra has a big chunk of abstract reasoning that's attached to it. And if you can just let your kids mature up a little bit, they will do better in algebra. And there's no rush. They can do algebra, they can do pre-algebra in 9th grade, they can do algebra 1 in 10th grade. And then if they want to go on mathematically at this point in high school, you're going to know whether or not they're leaning towards mathematics. Out of my 5 sons, only one of them at this point was begging me to go, please let me do algebra 2. Please let me do trigonometry. Please let me do calculus. I'm like, nope. That's why God invented college professors that love math. Because if your kids are going to higher math, if you are not a mathematician, now if you are, you can disregard this part. But if you are not a mathematician, you want your kids to learn those higher concepts from people that love that topic. I made it a point to collect mathematicians and I'd put them in my back pocket. So if I had questions, I would call Jamie or I would call Sarah or I would call Eva, and they would be able to help me with the concepts that I was struggling with or teach the kids that concept from a place of excitement, the same way that if you came to my house, I could teach you how to make pizza with excitement and enthusiasm without looking at the recipes because I've made them so much and I know what they smell like and taste like and look like and how much you put into the bowl and all that stuff. And you want your kids to learn math, the higher math specifically, from people that know it that well. So there you have it in a nutshell. I will come back and I will do one more wrap-up video about how to teach your homeschoolers math. But it's not complicated. And I'll actually wrap that up in the next video. So grab the resources and the links down below, create bookmarks so that you can find them later, and I'll see you in the next video.